I'll start when it, okay. So, all right, our recording has started. Welcome to the first day of class. I'm really excited. I'm particularly excited about this course. My two greatest loves in life are pediatrics and mental health. And so that's what I get to teach. And pediatrics is up first. I have almost 2 decades of experience in pediatrics. I love it from head to toe. I speak peds from head to toe. My entire adult career, I've been working with children. Something that I love to do. The 2 semesters that we're going to go through, the first semester is more foundational. So you're going to learn a lot about diagnoses. You're going to learn about the approach that we take as occupational therapists to pediatrics. But it's very, what I mean by foundational is it's the information that you are going to need in order to expand into assessment and intervention. So the second portion of this course, which will be in the summer, specifically will address intervention and assessment. So now we're just going to kind of learn the foundation of everything that we need. So the class time will definitely be very interactive. We'll be doing a lot of activities, but the intention of the activities during this particular semester is just going to introduce you to what is pediatric OT, because I know that I have a bunch of CODAs. I know that I have a bunch of CODAs and PTAs, and I found that PTAs sometimes, pediatrics is a challenging area, especially if you work in home health. So being gentle to that, we're going to start now by introducing you to the types of interventions that we see in the pediatric world. So now that I've made that little talk, I am going to go straight into sharing with you the PowerPoint. So forgive me in advance. I just got a Mac, and I'm doing my darndest to make it work. But my Mac and I have been fighting for a little bit. So this is the syllabus. This is spring of 2018. My name is Professor Salvaji Hernandez. You may call me Sarah, or you may call me Professor Salvaji Hernandez. The Salvaji tends to scare people. Just think super Italian, so Salvaji. I am an occupational therapist. I have my master's degree, but I'm also currently in a PhD program. And the focus of my research is on mental health and so the decline of play and the increase of mental health diagnoses in children. We will be meeting with each other. The sections are meeting either from 10 to 12 or 1 to 3. The important thing to note about these times is that the 10 to 12, it's actually 10 to 11:30. The classes are only 90 minutes long, but we have a half an hour at the end that's scheduled for any kind of like office hours. So we will get out promptly at 11:30, not 12 a.m. That would be an awful class. But we'll get out 11:30 in the morning, and then from 11:30 to 12, I will be available for office hours. And if you are in the second class, it goes from 1 to 2:30, and I will be available from 2:30 to 3 for office hours. So these are the on-site dates: 113, 127, 210, 224, 310, 324, 47, and your final exam will be on 428. You, in addition to these on-site classes, there is an online requirement. So you are required to attend 4 classes. They are your choice. The signups will go out live tonight, and you will be picking whatever 4 classes best work with your schedule. Once 12 people have signed up, the signups are closed. And then you are expected to do your signups by, I think it's Sunday I'm giving you to. And then I'll be closing that sheet. So you have to pick in advance which 4 days or 4 classes you'll be attending. During those classes, we'll be going over a PowerPoint that will cover the chapters that you're reading. And we'll also kind of expand what you're reading a little bit and explore any concepts to help you have a fuller understanding of what you're reading. The time, this is actually the wrong time. It will be from 7 to 8, but we will end promptly at 7:50. So tonight's voluntary, and these are the options for you for signing up for classes. This is my office number. This is, it's a 3 credit course. So technically there's not supposed to be a lab, but when we're on site, I will be running classes like a lab. I'm pretty much in my office the entire day on Wednesday. I probably will be there Thursday as well. But if you would like to meet with me and have a conversation, I also can schedule time through Google Hangout or Skype to have a virtual office hour with you. Just please give me 48 hours notice that that's going to happen. So I'm going to pause for a moment before I go forward. Are there any questions before I get into the content of the course? Awesome. All right. Well, and just so you know, if you're typing in the chat box while I have the screen sharing on, I won't be able to see it. But as soon as I stop screen sharing, I will always check the chat box if you have a question. So then I will go back to the syllabus. All right. So important to note that this is flip style. You are responsible for a lot of independent learning. This may be uncomfortable for some of you. However, this is sort of the trade-off with the MOT program that has on-site requirements. There's a lot more didactic lecture, meaning a professor is lecturing to students. This does not have, this approach, the hybrid approach, doesn't have that. However, this semester in all of my classes, I've added online discussions just to make sure that everybody kind of felt comfortable and secure in what they were learning and what they were supposed to know. And it also gives people an opportunity to ask questions. So we talked about this a little bit earlier, that in this course, we're going to cover typical development. We're going to go through stage by stage. We're going to talk about what OTs do. We're going to talk about where OTs work. And we're going to be introduced to completing an assessment and creating an intervention plan. During the semester, you will be completing the sensory profile 2 on yourself, and you will also be writing up an intervention plan for yourself to help you with, hopefully, feeling comfortable and confident as you go through this big shift in occupation. Now you are all graduate students. So you can certainly read these curriculum threads and the student learning outcomes. Essentially what I've spoke about, but what's interesting to know is ACOTE has, our accrediting body has specific standards that we have to make sure that we're teaching you. And so everything that we do is linked to a standard from the accrediting body. So you can certainly review those. We'll get down to the fun stuff. So there's 2 required texts. The first is a textbook that we will use this semester and next semester. If you can believe this, we will actually get through that whole textbook. It's a wonderful textbook written by Jane K. Smith and O'Brien. Jane K. Smith, especially, is a bit of a superstar in the OT world, and she passed away last year. But she was and continues to contribute to occupational therapy. Brilliant. And then the second is the Fine Motor Olympics manual and card set. This is not only going to be essential for you this semester, but it's something that you can take with you if you are so lucky to have a pediatric level 2 field work. The card set in particular is phenomenal. These curriculum texts are something that we all use. So for example, APA is going to be the rule, the publication manual. These are all texts that you should have. But specific to the course, the two things that you need for this course are the Fine Motor Olympics manual and also the big textbook. Next semester, you will not need an additional textbook. So what you buy now will also be good through next semester. So before I go into policies, I'm going to check. He said okay, so Kay is asking, I was lucky enough to have the 6th edition donated to me. Is using the 6th edition okay, or must I have the 7th edition? I would say that it's important to have the 7th edition. However, it's just a reminder, we do have a resource room on campus, so you may want to check and see on campus what the difference between the two are. I would always recommend the 7th edition because the quizzes and the tests are directly from the text. So, but definitely check with a resource room to see what the differences are. Right? We'll go back. So, all work is to be typed unless if I tell you otherwise. You have 2 weeks after the return of an assignment to challenge a grade. This does not in any way, shape, or form upset me if you feel like you've done or you met the expectations and I've given you a grade that you were not expecting. I'm open to having a conversation with you about that. So please feel empowered to come to me and have that conversation. APA format is required for all papers. This is something that I'm going to drive home to you over and over again. Cheating and plagiarism or the support of them is unethical. And unfortunately, I think there's a couple of things happening, but this is a very intense program. And sometimes people can feel a little crunched toward the end, and they may feel like cutting corners by especially plagiarism. I won't catch it. I will. And it puts us both in a really awkward position because I have a duty to maintain the academic integrity of the program. And so therefore, once that happens, the paper is assigned a 0 and is turned into academic integrity. So if you are feeling really crunched and if you are feeling really overwhelmed, please reach out to your professors and let's create some kind of plan how we can support you, because nobody wants to be in this situation. You can also contest points on an exam or quiz. This is how you do it. All written assignments must include the full name. Please put your name in the header of all assignments. All papers follow the APA format, so that means that it's typed in Times New Roman and a 12-point font. And this is another important policy to know. Late work, you lose 10 points for every 24-hour period that it's late. And this is not necessarily my policy, it's the program policy. But for example, if you have something that's due at 9 o'clock on Thursday night and you turn it in at 9:01 on Thursday night, it is late and it will be assigned the 10-point deduction. If you have something that's due at 9 o'clock at night and you say it's a discussion and you start that discussion post at 9:45, but you don't submit until 9:05, it's still late. So my best advice to you is to always try to turn in your work a day early, or an hour earlier. And if there's some kind of struggle, like say your internet is running slow or something's happening with your computer, please send me an email. And then, at that point, if it's before the time that it's due, I can be a little bit more flexible and say, hey, no problem. Let's figure this out by tomorrow. But I can't do anything after the fact. All assignments should be your best final work. You are welcome to ask me direct questions. However, it is also program policy that we don't grade twice. So, we'll never be the situation where you just turn in your paper and say, hey, professor, do you mind reading the paper and telling me, where I can improve? You need to ask something a little bit more specific than that. Because otherwise, then I would be grading papers twice. So everything that you turn in should be your best and final work. Another program policy is that if you miss a meeting on site, 2 points are subtracted from the final grade. Turn it in is something that we use to detect plagiarism. So please understand, again, that I will be checking. This is a statement on academic integrity. If you have a disability that requires accommodations, please contact Surbi Patel. Here is her email and her telephone number. However we can support your success, we are happy to do so. So please let her know. These are all pretty standard things. So I'm just going to get down to the meat of this. So before I get into talking about the actual assignments, I'm going to check. Okay, ideally speaking, when should we all have the textbook? Let me look at your... All right, so for the first couple of modules, I only have you reading chapter 1 in K. Smith, and then so you should get it as soon as you possibly can. The Bay Path Library has this on reserve, and also if you want to go to the Ryan Center, they will have it for you if you need to get there early and read. But once 127, the class that we have together on 127, then pretty much everything that we're going to be reading comes from the book. So you'll definitely need to have the book by then. Any other questions before I'm going to stop? Any other questions before I go into the assignments? No, maybe so. All right, well then we will go right back into the syllabus and talk about these assignments. When we get together, we will have an opportunity to talk about the assignments in more detail and go over any rubrics. So we're just going to kind of overview them tonight. You have 3 tests total. You have test 1, test 2, and a final. The first 2 tests are worth 10% each, and the final is worth 15%. You also have a self-assessment and interpretation. This is what we talked about earlier with the sensory profile. That is worth 10%. The intervention plan is worth 15%. So that's when you are taking the information that you get from doing the sensory profile too, and then creating a plan for yourself is worth 15%. Your diagnosis presentation is worth 10%. Your fine motor kit is worth 10%. The online discussions are also worth 10%, and professionalism is worth 10%. So we'll go all the way down to talking about these assignments. The first two tests are going to come straight from the book and from lectures that we have. And once we get through this, I'm actually going to spend a little bit more time with you about what material is going to be covered in the tests and how you can prepare for these tests. So just know the first test is February 10th, the second test is March 10th, and the final is on-site, and it's and all of these tests are on-site. The final is on 4/28. The online discussions are going to be kind of a mix between very playful and something a little bit more serious, something meant to kind of expand what you're reading. Those will be pass-fail. So as long as you answer the questions as they're written, you will pass and receive full points. The diagnosis presentation is something that we are going to cover in a bit more detail when we meet on Saturday, because the first presentation is going to be on the 27th of January. But you and up to no more than 4 people, so total, so you and 3 other people will be signing up to do a presentation on a pediatric diagnosis. These are the things that the presentation must cover. Please feel free to use a PowerPoint, and you're just going to, as a group, stand up and deliver a little mini lecture on a diagnosis. In addition to presenting on these topics, so what is it? How is it diagnosed? How is it typically treated? Why does it matter to OT? What do we do in OT to help support individuals that may have this diagnosis? In addition to that, you are going to write a short quiz, 6 questions, 2 may be true and false, but the rest must be multiple choice, and you will be giving that to the class. And so the class is going to take a little mini quiz. It's not going to be graded. However, please note that I will be using these questions on your test. So even if you are simply listening to a presentation, it's really important that you pay attention to these questions because you will see them again. And in addition to the quiz, you'll give an answer key. So whatever the right answer is, you'll have to give a rationale for why that answer is right. Again, we will talk about this in great detail on Saturday. But before I go on to the next assignment, are there any questions on the presentation? Signups will open tonight, by the way. Nope. Okay, great. So we'll talk more about that on Saturday. I think, I forget how many points, but if the people who sign up to go on the 27th of January will receive bonus points. And even if, you hit it out of the park and you get 100 on your presentation, like everybody does a phenomenal job, you will still earn those 5, I think it's 5 extra points. So you have a potential to earn up to 105 points for going first, because that's a brave thing to do. So we will go back to the syllabus. So self-assessment, again, this is something that we will have more conversation about in class, but you will be doing the sensory profile too. You will be writing up your results. So not just the actual results, but doing background information, so doing a little timeline. This will be preparing you for the second semester of writing a full evaluation. So you're going to write background information, you're going to report the results, and include the interpretation of those results. And then make recommendations for home, school, and work in the community, specifically suggesting sensory supports to promote regulation strategies throughout the day. So, for example, my sensory profile, I have I score very high in low registration. And that simply means I miss things a lot. Like I'm the person who will highlight every single word to make it jump out. I'm the person, if you ask me to find my keys, I cannot find them for 33 hours. And I say to my husband, oh my God, I cannot find my keys. And he finds them in 30 seconds. I just miss a lot of things. And so based on those results, I would make strategies like, for example, for home, I would have a basket that I put my keys in every single time. Otherwise, I know I'm going to miss them. For school, I would develop highlighting strategies to make sure that I'm highlighting due dates so that I make sure that I don't miss a due date. For work, I may suggest that I don't know. I don't know what I would do at work. That's so funny. I might suggest that I have a to-do list for work to make sure that I'm, keeping on task. And then in the community, I might make sure that I make a shopping list so that I don't go to the store and get completely overwhelmed and forget what I'm actually there for, which happens every single time. But we will talk more about this, about sensory. Sensory is my jam. I love sensory. I breathe sensory.
That's a jam.
So I will definitely talk more about that. Did somebody have a question? No? Okay. So the next part is the intervention plan. This will be building off of the results. Just want to grab my paper and make sure I'm saying everything. So this intervention plan is, I find it pretty powerful because what I'm hoping for you is that whatever the results of your sensory profile are, you are creating a pathway for success, getting through the next year and a half of classes. It is intense, but you can do it. And we're here to support each other. So the things that are going to be included in your intervention plan, which is due on April 8th, this part you will have already done. You will have already done that in the previous assignment. So what you're really going to be including, you're going to identify 2 areas of occupational performance. We're going to be writing both long-term, short-term goals. We are going to be creating 2 intervention sessions for each of the short-term goals. And an intervention session should be 30 to 45 minutes long and will likely contain multiple activities. You are going to be providing me a rationale for each activity. Why is it important? Why are we doing this? Why is it important for somebody to highlight before, highlight a grocery list before they go out on the store? And then you are going to be grading the activities to make each activity simpler or more challenging. And you're also going to be grading the sensory stimuli for each activity. This is a lot of information, but I think that it will make a lot of sense to you once we're going to have an entire class that's based on sensory. And we're going to be doing some activities in which you're going to have a chance to practice grading the activity to make it simpler or more challenging, and also grading the sensory stimuli. So before this is due, we're going to be kind of going through and helping you organize yourself so that you can sit down and feel comfortable when you are writing up this intervention plan. The next one is the fine motor kit that is due February 24th. Again, we are going to be talking on, I think, January 27th. We're going to be discussing this in detail in class and going over the rubric so that everybody knows. But the gist of it is that you are going to have 5 items. So it could be like the example here are pennies. So I would have a bag that's filled with pennies, and in that bag, I would also have 2 cards. And those cards would have an activity that I could do with the pennies. And that activity would be listed on the card. And on the back of the card, I would tell what hand skills, fine motor skills, grasp skills that I'm working on by doing these activities. The Fine Motor Olympics will help you a lot with this. If you have your Fine Motor Olympics, pull out the cards, because the cards that are included in the Fine Motor Olympics are exactly what I'm looking for. There only needs to be 5 items, and it just has to be in some kind of small box, like a shoe box or something that you can kind of carry around with you. So professionalism, again, we've discussed that, worth 10%, but those are all of the activities. So before I move on, because I really want to show you in the modules how to prepare for your exams and how to read the textbook. But can I answer any questions? Yes, no, maybe so. We're going to go with no. And so I'm going to go ahead and call this up. Dun, 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 dun. I'm a singer, by the way. I hum all the time, so apologies in advance. It's not very good, but I do it. I'm going to go ahead and share with you then the modules, and so that you can, the fine motor kit, is that due in class? Yes. You're going to leave it with me for 2 weeks, and I'm going to play. That's the best part of my job. But yes, you're going to bring it to class. Thank you for the question, Kelly. Are there any other questions that I can answer? Okay. So next we are going to go through the modules, and I'm going to show you how to prepare for this. All right. So here we are. So basically, I've signed into class. This is the second section. I'm going to come over to so these are the announcements. Discussions can be here, but I find the best place to go and I'm really big on organizing things, is right here to the modules. So once you click on that, later on tonight, and I'll send out an announcement to tell you when these are open, but you'll be signing up for your virtual classes, and you'll be signing up for your diagnosis presentation. So the first chapter, if you click on the overview, it'll tell you what to do, but this is specifically what I want to show you. So there's a quiz. This quiz is not anything that's required. This is practice. I think I give you 5. So after reading chapter 1, you're going to take this quiz. You have 5 attempts. You'll get 10 questions. It is completely optional. It does not count toward your final grade. However, I don't know how I can be more clear to you other than to say, if you invest time in this quiz and taking this quiz and being comfortable with the material in the quiz, you will do well on the test. And in addition to this quiz, I have made optional questions. These are the questions that will be in the quiz. So as you're reading the chapter, it is completely up to you, but you can go through and answer these questions. So for this particular chapter, it's not very long, because there's some chapters where there's a lot of questions. But for this chapter, there's only 18. So it's something, it's kind of a guide for you as you're reading. So you're reading through the chapter, you're answering these questions, you can take the quiz if you want to take the quiz. It won't count against you if you don't take the quiz, but it's a good idea to take it. And if you are comfortable and confident with these questions, you will do well on the tests. Also included, and it's due by January 26th, is one of the first discussions. But all of that is kind of organized for you right here. You have a couple, two. So by the 26th, you have two discussions that are due. You have, if there's a quiz, there will also be a document that goes along with it that will kind of help you, and we'll have the questions for you to answer. I believe I have about a month and a half of material up. Just going through chapter by chapter. But again, this is, I like to try to be very hyper organized. So that information is all there. So I'm going to come back, stop screen sharing. All right. So the fine motor code, oh, you mentioned that we need to cite APA style during the first discussion. Are we expected to pull information from the textbook and or outside sources? Okay, so if, let me go back, and now you're gonna see my face kind of glaze over because I'm gonna be reading it. But the first discussion, did your culture influence the development of your occupation through childhood? Use table 1, 2. So using that table, explore how you identified your culture or how your identified culture shaped your family composition. So yes, if in some way you reference the book, you do need to include an in-text citation and at the bottom put a reference. Just a spoiler alert, the reference for the K. Smith book is in the syllabus. So that may make it a little bit easier for you to find that reference. But I will always let you know in a discussion, if you are using some kind of outside information, I will let you know, like I expect that you have an APA reference. That answer your question, Kelly? Okay, good. All right. So again, this is a lot of material, but I really want to give you opportunities. So through answering the questions, through doing those practice quizzes, to really help assess yourself. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that while they are not mandatory, they do not count toward your grade. It is a really good idea for you to use those practice quizzes. Does everybody understand? You can chat in the chat box if you want. Okay. Good. Are there any questions, anything that I can answer for you now? Again, we are getting together this Saturday. I just kind of, wanted to make sure that we were a little bit organized moving forward. But are there any questions that I can answer? All right. Well, I am super, super excited. Like I said, PEDS is my life, my love. And I'm so excited to share that with you. This is going to be a really amazing journey. And so some of you have had you already for a year. You're still stuck with me. And for those of you who are coming in and are new to the program, I'm really excited to start this together. So thank you so much for giving me your time tonight, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Okay? Bye, everybody.